Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Kohler Arms, America's competition shotgun, and is fueled by Fiocchi.
Welcome to the Dead Pair Podcast, coming in hot with everything you want to hear about sporting clays. With your hosts, Jason Rambo.
This is what I have to work with, everyone.
And Sean Alley.
Like I said, I was just thirsty.
Oh, boy.
Often imitated, but never duplicated. It's the Dead Pair Podcast. It's showtime.
Coming in hot. Welcome back, Mr. Large and in Charge. What's up, my friend?
Oh, doing good, man. It's finally starting to really look like spring here. The grass is greening up. The trees are starting to bud. It's coming. It's coming. In a long time, it's coming.
Right? Yeah, for you guys, you're begging for this weather.
Yes.
Any tournaments coming up soon there, Sean Alley, for you?
Well, I've got a couple of them coming up, but as you know, my wife's going to be having a surgery here pretty soon. We're not sure on the exact dates yet, so I really haven't signed up for a whole lot because I just don't know what I'm going to be available for. So just kind of touch and go, playing that by ear right now.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, if Sean can't make it to a podcast, I may or may not have a guest co-host, until Sean can come back. During that time, we'd like to extend Sean and his family a little bit of privacy. They deserve it. They're going through a little rough time there, a real rough patch, Sean. I know you're really humble and not wanting to dive into details, and I respect that. But just so you know, buddy, we'll be here for you when you get back, and I'm sure everybody's going to be anxious to hear from you when you do get back. If you do miss an episode or two,
Yeah,
So,
and that's an
no
if.
worries.
I mean, again, we don't know the schedule yet or when they're going to have the surgery for her. It's planned, but we just don't know exact what dates yet. So until we get a little further along, we can advise and update everybody as we get more information. We'll share that. No big deal. But, I may be absent just because, hey, the old lady's more important than the shooting and or the podcasts, unfortunately.
Yes, and that's like one of the 10 commandments. He had to say that.
That's right. That's right. Nah, just kidding. Love you, babe.
Yeah, we wish you the best, and staff, we're praying for you, girl.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, speaking of tournaments, we have got quite the sizable tourney talk that the lovely Miss Casey Chase with Score Chaser has updated us on. You want to get through that, bud?
Yep, she's fired over a big one, so everybody hold on.
It's Tourney Talk. Brought to you by Score Chaser.
All right, guys, looks like a couple of these were missed, which is why this is such a long list. I'm going to go down through them. All of this is for 2025. So we've got Nebraska State at Otto County Wildlife. That's June 12th through the 15th. Next up, Minnesota State FETASC and Supersport at South St. Paul. That's June 20th through the 22nd. Then you've got Oklahoma State at Quail Ridge. That's June 26th through the 29th. Then Minnesota State 5-stand small bore, that's going to be at Forest Lake, and that's June 27th through the 29th. Then we've got Maryland State at Schrader's, June 28th through the 29th. New Mexico State at Creekside Clays, and that's August 21st through the 24th. And last but not least, we got West Virginia State at Stonewall, and that is September 6th. Whew, that's a bunch of them.
That's a mouthful right there.
It is.
And I'm hearing there's some more brewing that could be released any day now. So we'll stay up on top of that, and we'll get with you on the next episode as soon as something releases. So, but thank you to Casey Chase and the girls at Score Chaser. Appreciate all that information. And I know a lot of people, Sean, we've had emails. People love us doing that because it highlights that, hey, get your butt over to Score Chaser and get signed up.
All right, exactly.
But in the way these tournaments fill up anymore, you got to do that quick, man,
Yeah, some of the hot ones, man, they fill up. Look at Jack Links. It was almost full, like within 48 hours or something like that. Crazy.
It's
amazing.
Less than that, like 24, yeah. Hey, listen, we've had a lot of requests for this show. We're going to be talking to Brandon Powell and Scott Dixon over at Rhino Chokes. A lot of people have been asking to hear from Brandon on how he developed the new Alien Series chokes, and Scott Dixon as well. How did they come up with this formula that makes this choke so much better? And, Sean, real quick before we get started with them, it's a slippery slope. There's people that change chokes often. Some people don't even have chokes. I'm thinking of a very large-headed individual that may or may not have been on this podcast a few too many times that has a fixed choke gun.
Yeah.
But I kind of go back to what Ben Huswade said one time, that he won a world championship by changing his chokes, and then he went and won another world championship where he had forgot his chokes at home and shot the whole event without changing. So it's definitely a matter of preference. But the one thing I will say about that is if you're a guy or gal that has chokes, whether you change them often or not, having really good chokes is very, very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, I really think it really hinges upon your experience level and where you are at in the game. I mean, I think a more experienced shooter could definitely go with fixed chokes and never have to really mess with them too much. More shooters that are getting kind of more familiar with the game, I think it's kind of a crutch to lean on a little bit, open the chokes up for something that you're not really sure about to give you some extra advantage to maybe hit that bird or tighten them up on a really long bird. So, I mean, it's personal preference like anything, right? You do what you want to do and whatever makes you feel good. But chokes are important, and it's definitely a hot topic, and these have definitely been talked about quite a bit. So I'm sure everybody's been waiting to hear about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him about it, and we'll see what they have to say. We'll see why they're the quote unquote alien chokes. So
well, it might be the color. If you've seen the color of those things, they're definitely alien looking. But we'll let them talk about that a little bit.
I think somewhere in between there, I think Chad Roberts and Brandon Powell got together and they had some kind of color idea going on. I don't know.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and get on it. Let me give Brandon and Scott a call and get this rolling. Hey, everyone. Each and every week you hear Sean and I brag about our sponsors. And it's not because they sponsor the show. It's because of their products and the unmatched customer support behind each and every single one of those products. We hope you're taking the time to investigate for yourself, try the products out, and see why we love them so much. Hey, Toby Tomplay, you want to remind everyone who we're talking about?
I'd love to, Jason. Kohler Arms, America's competition shotgun. Fiocchi USA. Here at the Dead Pair, we're fueled by Fiocchi. Ranger Performance Eyewear. See it further, see it faster, see it clearer with Ranger. Atlas Traps, America's finest clay target equipment. Rhino Chokes. For deadly patterns and knockdown power, choose Rhino. Long Range, the industry standard for trap release and target management systems. Taconic Distillery. After the tournament is over, it's time for one more shot with Taconic Distillery. Score Chaser, your shoots simplified. Clay Range Design Works, your one-stop shop for all your clay target needs. And now, back to the show.
All right, everyone. This is a round table that's going to be a lot of fun if we can keep him under control. We have Mr. Brandon Powell with us. What's up, Brandon?
How y'all doing?
Good.
Doing great.
And then, of course, Mr. Scott Dixon from Rhino Chokes. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing well, gentlemen.
Well, guys, this has been much anticipated. Believe it or not, we have had a lot of emails asking for this. So we had talked about it before they even came out. But once Brandon started flashing those new chokes on his gun, our emails blew up. When are you going to have Brandon on talk about the chokes? So thankfully, we were able to put this together and get you guys here.
Yes.
Brandon, I kind of want to start with you. Let's start with this. This should probably be an easy answer for you, but why the switch to Rhino? Tell us why you made the switch.
Well, I like the fact that the Rhino has, a longer parallel, and it's just a better choke tube at the end of the day. If you look how it's structured and how it's built, I feel like there's a lot of things that you get out of a Rhino choke tube versus a lot of the other products on the market.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Brandon, speaking of choke tubes, man, I know that you've thrown a lot of lead down range. So, starting off for our listeners, I know you've probably experimented with a lot of chokes. Obviously that's a no-brainer. But in your opinion, how important is it for a shooter to have the right chokes for their particular gun? I mean, do you feel like a lot of shooters don't get this right or mix this up at times?
Yeah, I think they do. I think that there's a lot of misconception between shotguns and rifles. When people, rifle shooters, they're real particular about, a certain rifle likes a certain round, a certain grain. Believe it or not, when you get into shotguns, you run into a lot of the same stuff. My gun, my parkour that I shoot, my particular barrel, it does not really like eights. There's a lot of different things that factor into knowing your equipment and what works well and what doesn't work well. And every barrel, I see that all the time with shotguns. What one shotgun likes, another shotgun doesn't like. What one choke tube likes, the other one doesn't. So, I mean, yeah, so there's definitely stuff that factors in there along the way.
Well, along those lines, and I don't want to, this is not derogatory by any means. Are you a choke changer? I mean, as in when you're out there on a tournament, do you pretty much get your set chokes in the gun and leave them that way? Or do you find that there's certain opportunities or certain presentations where you're apt to change your chokes in your gun?
No, I'm definitely not a choke changer. I never have been. I don't feel like that's a game for me to play. I've tried that. And a lot of that may be mental, but there's definitely an advantage for a lot of people on opening up and shooting, a different choke tube on a different station on a different target. Obviously that's why they're sold. I probably have more choke tubes in my bag than anybody on the course, even though I use two, majority of the time. But yeah, there's times where you will see me definitely change chokes and open up. If there's something in a quick window, the wind's blowing something, it's close range, or even a rabbit. I've been a big fan of changing and opening up for rabbits for a long time.
Okay. And in addition to that, so getting back to Rhino and you guys working on these new chokes, I'm sure you had some ideas when you were approached by Rhino of things you wanted to incorporate into your choke. I mean, what kind of things did you feel you wanted to bring or ask Scott and the guys at Rhino to do to make this choke the best that you could make it for you?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people know, but previously before Scott bought the business, when Joe Morales owned it, I was a Rhino shooter for a long time. So it was easy for me to go back to that product because I already believed in it and I used it for a long time. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any issues there. We just, I kind of let Scott take the field on as far as, we worked on the aesthetics of the choke and a lot of the design, and he built different stuff, changed parallels and whatnot. And I had him send it to me and I gave him feedback, not based off of what we did on the patterning board, but feedback on how the target broke. I feel like a lot of people in the game, they want to run to the patterning board, and the patterning board was designed to show you point of impact, not as much your actual pattern of what you're getting. Because when you're shooting at something that's moving, versus something that's in a fixed position that's steel, it's not always giving you the feedback that you want or you need. And I feel like the best way to do that is run lead down the barrel on the range at clay targets at different distances and angles and speeds. And that was how we kind of came up and got to where we were with what we liked.
Yeah. And in that same breath, it's like, the more experienced you are, that they call it feeding off your breaks, right? So when you see a nice break happen, as you're more experienced, you start to that kind of builds confidence. You're like, man, I'm really crushing that thing. Younger shooters or newer shooters to the sport may or may not realize that. They're just trying to break targets. I mean, bottom line. But I mean, as you get more experienced in this game, you can honestly tell how the choke's hitting the bird, and you can kind of read off of that and adjust how you're shooting, correct?
Yeah, correct. 100%, and I like to shoot tighter because it tells me where I'm at. It's common sense. When you shoot more of an open choke, you could be a little bit behind the bird and still break the bird, or be, a little too far in front and still break the bird. If I'm tighter in constriction, if I'm too far out in front, I'm going to catch it with the tail end of the shot string on the nose of the bird. So I know I was too far in front, even though, I think most of the people agree that coach people they would all tell the person the same thing. Stand there in the box and don't try to correct where you hit the bird. You'll see that all the time. People turn around and go, where was that piece at off that target? And they'll go, oh, it was off the back of the target. It was off the top. You see them try to overcorrect that. And the next one, they end up with a miss because then they're measuring the shot instead of just shooting the shot. I tell people all the time, you're better off standing there and killing the bird 3 times with a fingernail piece size of, target off the bird 4 times than you are killing one of them in the middle and then missing the next 3 trying to overcompensate. So, I like to shoot tighter because it gives me feedback, on my breaks and where I'm hitting the birds. But, I feel like there's advantages and disadvantages to all that also.
Well, Brandon, talk a little bit about the testing with these new alien chokes. What did you feel you were missing with your previous chokes and that you were trying to achieve by developing this new choke with Rhino?
Well, I'm really, really big on, hitting the target hard. My mindset when I step in the box is not just to kill all 6 or all 8 or all 4, whatever the menu shows. It's to step in there and see how hard I can hit those. So when we started this, I think we definitely, we 100% made improvements on, the pattern, the way the shots distributed out of the choke. If you notice on this new line, we did away with the porting. I feel like that's something that I'm not going to say that it makes a difference or doesn't make a difference when it comes to the wad. I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different opinions off of stuff that they use that might work, it might not work. To me, it's something you got to clean. I don't think it's needed necessarily, but we set out to find something that had a really, really good pattern and that gives you really, really hard breaks, and I shot a lot of different ammunition through the process, not just, the ammunition company that sponsors me, Remington. I shot Remington, I shot Winchester during the testing process of all this, and the feedback that I got off of a wide variety of all the different loads that you can buy and that people shoot, the feedback was unbelievable.
Well, I'm sure you tried the Elite series, obviously, but what did if the person that's listening to this and they're like, well, I have Elites now, why, what's going to make these chokes better? What is your opinion? What does the Alien do different than the Elite does?
Well, and I think that's where we bring Scott in, and let him talk a little bit because, he's the brains behind the whole operation and the machinist here. So yeah. I think that he definitely can give a little more feedback on, why some of the things make it better or, why it's not, what some of the changes were.
Well, help us out there, Scott. What if you could answer that question? Somebody that has the Elite choke now and they love it, and why would I want to go to an Alien? What does the Alien do different that the Elite doesn't?
We've gotten a lot of mixed reviews. I mean, we've had people that have dropped the Elites and went to the Aliens, and we've had people that have tried the Aliens and stayed with the Elite. So, Rhino has always been a ported choke tube company. We'll always stand behind porting. We believe in it, not just in the choke tubes, but also in the barrel porting that we do. So we do believe that porting has a place and it has a function, and it does do what we have designed it to do. Now, with that being said, the Alien choke being non-ported, so anyone who has been saying to themselves, well, I can't be a Rhino fan because I don't do porting. So I believe that gives us that opportunity now to cater to that side of the customers. So it's really too early for me to say that this one is better than that one.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think it goes back to what Brandon was talking about too, that, there's of course shooter preferences, and there's also gun preferences of what does your gun perform with better? What does the ammunition that you use perform with? So, that's something that every individual shooter needs to know and understand and take the time to see what is the best performance and, that they're looking for.
And just like the Elites, we've had the demo program of Elite chokes, where you could come to the rig at an event, take a set of choke tubes out, demo them, and see how they perform. We will also be doing the same thing with the Alien, so you could, for yourself, do a side-by-side comparison. You say, you know what, my gun, my ammo, my shooting style, this one works better for me. So that's always going to be available to the customers
when we're out at
an event.
Is there an easy way, Scott, for our listeners that may or may not be as experienced as Brandon, is there an easy way to talk to somebody and say, okay, you got a ported choke over here, you got a non-ported choke over here. Can you give them kind of a brief breakdown as far as pros, cons, benefits? I don't know how to phrase it. Maybe you can kind of concisely wrap that up and kind of give people an answer between porting and non-porting. Maybe it's not so easy. Maybe I'm guessing.
Through the testing and the development of the Alien choke, we made it as good as the Elites.
Okay.
We built on that platform that the Elites had established, And yeah, we did a few little different things because of the fact that there is no porting there. So we did some different internals, and I can't sit here and tell you that this one's better than that one.
Okay, fair enough. But is there you hear a lot of people talk about like wad strippers and things like that, and those are typically your open chokes, your ported chokes and stuff like that. So with a straight wad choke without porting, I mean, is there a big difference in how the wad is affected going through the gun, so that people can maybe understand that aspect?
So you definitely don't have that stripping action that you get with the ported choke tubes. So in our transitions internally, we've slowed the wad down. It's not stripping it.
Okay.
But it's like Brandon touched on earlier, the parallel section. We get the wad in the shot in that section, allow it going straight and to synchronize. People don't realize how much harmonics happen in that transition. And if you don't get that out of the shot, when it comes out the muzzle, it affects the pattern of the choke tube. So what we did internally, minimizing that effect, is what I believe makes the choke tube perform the way it does.
Scott, talk a little bit about the R&D phase of making these chokes for Brandon. Did it take a lot of manipulating the choke to get what Brandon was looking for, or was he able to come to you and say, "Man, I want this," or a little bit more of that, or was it easy to go by that, or did it take a lot?
It was pretty easy to go by. So we had always made a non-ported choke if you ordered it as such.
Okay.
So we never marketed it because, again, we've always been a ported choke tube company. We believe in porting. We stand behind porting. But when the opportunity presented itself with Brandon and him coming on board, and the first thing he said is, "Man, I don't do ported chokes." And I said, "Okay, well, we can do some testing." And, we had the basis of what we wanted to do. And I think it was probably within a half a dozen different iterations, Brandon, that we got what we ended up with.
Yeah, that's about right.
Well, guys, I tell you what, here's a big topic of discussion. I know a lot of people have been talking about this. I'm not sure what you call that color scheme, like psychedelic rainbow alien pattern or whatever it is that you want to go by or name it. Who came up with that idea?
Wait. I have a theory.
You have a theory?
Brandon shot around with Chad Roberts when he was wearing that
Lord.
rainbow vest. And he goes, "I just found the color." So
no, that's a really cool color, man. I mean, I don't know how difficult it was to come up with that.
It happened on accident, actually. It's a base coat to the SP4 that we put on our black chokes. Okay. And it's the process. There was a power outage at the plant where they put that on. And when that happens, they have to start from scratch again. So they had to pull all the stuff out of the chamber, start over. And the guy running said, "Oh man, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to give them one." And I've had that sitting on my desk probably 6-8 months.
No, it's been it's been a year now. Yeah.
A year, and it just kind of like, "Hey, Brandon, what do you think of this?" And he liked it, and some other people we showed really liked it. So we said, "Well, let's try it. Let's see how it goes." So,
well, it's definitely eye-catching.
It all came on by an accident. So, unfortunately, Chad, you don't get any credit.
It's answering a lot of questions about Brandon now. We got some clarity now. No, I'm just kidding, Brandon. Brandon, you gave me 2 of them to try for my gun. When we were down at the Jack Links Cup, you and I shot the make or break together, and I was thoroughly impressed. Like, I didn't know what to think. You know what I mean? They're both same constriction from what I had with my Rhino Elite 17s. And you gave me a set of 17 aliens for my gun to try, and I was really impressed. What would you say was the first thing when you had the final completed product of the alien, after spending a lot of time with it, what was the first thing that hit you that you said, "Okay, we got it right"?
Basically, the feedback that I got from the product, the way the target hit, I liked the way it looked. It was something different, something that nobody else has. Anybody that's known me for a long period of time, I like to be different anyways. So, I like that fact about it, that it stands out from all the other choke tube manufacturers on the market. If somebody has that in their gun, that, hey, that's an Alien series built by Rhino for Brandon Powell. There's no mistake in that whatsoever.
Right.
So that, I feel like that's a pretty cool thing there, and we actually, it's kind of crazy. We actually ran it down to the wire on the finished product, and I was able to put those in my gun, the finished product that we finally came out with when it was all done and the plating process was all over with. And I shot, my first tournament was actually the Caribbean Cup. And I shot 99 there, I think, with those, and then went on to win the Jack Links.
Yeah.
So, Jack Links being probably one of the second largest shoots of the year.
Yeah.
Definitely probably one of the biggest payouts.
Yeah, that's for sure. Scott, throughout the manufacturing process and going through all this with Brandon, as you guys were developing this, did I don't even know how to phrase this question. Throughout the process, did he make you realize something that you didn't before about the manufacturing process? Like by saying, hey, I wanted to do this, and then you guys would try something, and then I wanted to do that, and then you tried something. Did he bring anything to light that you didn't already know? Like, was it somewhat of a learning experience for you too?
Yeah. There was many things that we tried internally to play with the wad and to be able to, like I said earlier, get those pellets in the parallel section and get them settled down so that when they come out the muzzle, there's no harmonics in them and they're flying true. So, we learned as we developed that. Like I said, we tried several different internals. Some of them, they perform very well with some ammos, but not other ammos, and probably more in an open constriction than a tighter constriction. And of course, we're looking for a choke that performs all around. So, in the process of developing this choke tube, I think we may have touched on some things that will help us maybe in the skeet field, where they're going to be shooting a much more open choke tube. So there was things that we saw that performed very well there, but the all-around choke tube wouldn't work for a trap guy.
Right.
And then we found some things that I think worked very well in the tight constrictions that don't work in the open constriction. So now maybe, you'll see a dedicated trap line, a dedicated skeet line, and a dedicated sporting clay line. So I think over the coming, year and a half, we could see a whole new era of choke tubes out there from Rhino.
And let me just say that Scott he's constantly thinking. He's got so many ideas. I had to just tell him yesterday, please slow down. Please slow down. You've got so many ideas and so many things. And so Brandon coming with us and being willing to explore some of the different designs that Scott kind of had up his sleeve has been such a great partnership to really, see what else is out there, because choke tubes, there is so much technology and it's growing and it's advancing, just like every other technology out there.
I mean, look, most choke tubes are the same today as they were 40 years ago. And I would like to think that Rhino has turned it upside down a little bit and is doing the out of the box thinking to actually make a product that's different and better
and advanced.
That is really cool. And I have to stop everybody here for a second because I didn't realize that the boss lady was going to be joining us. Scott, would you please introduce her to everyone?
This is Jillian. I'm sure a lot of people have talked to her on the phone. She's the one that gets all your orders in place and sends them out to me and keeps me in line. So yes, this is Jillian.
Well, it's not just you. She keeps you and Matt in line. Trust me, I've been to the show and seen it.
She keeps the whole shop in line. Okay, it's me, Matt, and Jacob, and Niles, and Bill, and all the guys out on the floor. She's the one that keeps us all on the straight and narrow.
She may only be a little over 5 foot, but she carries a big whip. I've seen it.
She does.
Yeah.
And just so everybody, Jillian is my daughter, so I think she takes advantage of the opportunity to get back at Jack.
No, okay? She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. Well, Scott, hey, let me follow up on something you said. So right now you mentioned how you realize there might be some differences between, sporting, skeet, and trap and how the chokes work. What about, I'm sure there's got to be some rhyme or reason to this. I mean, you experiment on all kinds of guns, so I'm sure there's probably the same kind of challenge, making a choke for, a Beretta versus a Krieghoff versus a Kohler versus a Perazzi, so on and so forth. I mean, all those guns probably have their own little quirks or nuances about them, and you probably have to kind of take that into effect when you're making a choke for a specific brand of gun, don't you?
Yeah. And again, Brandon touched on it earlier that, the gun, the ammo, the shooter, the weather condition, those all have an effect on the performance of your package. So when we build choke tubes, we truly do just try and get a choke tube that works across the market, the best that it can be. Mm-hmm. To dial in any one particular gun, you would have just unheard of inventory, because every Beretta 686, 694, whatever, they would all be different, and you would have to carry those. So we really just try and build to the middle of the road. And I think that performance package out of a Rhino choke will do the shooter well.
No, that's fair. That's all I want to. Brandon, you want to add anything to that with your experience with different guns?
No, I mean, just, back to what we talked about earlier, they're definitely all different. Every barrel's built different. They're all going to have something that they like over something else a little more. I mean, whether it's 9-shot, 8-shot, 7.5s, the choke tube that's in there. I mean, what works in my gun might not work in another Krieghoff. It's just because my barrel, I mean, I've seen that a lot over the years with Krieghoffs, and I've shot Krieghoff for my entire career. Those barrels are hand built. They're built by different people, and what one barrel likes, the other barrel might not like, and that's the reality of it. I know that it's a smooth bore gun, and people don't think of it like that. That's why I brought up rifles into the factor there, because when people are loading, like I hand load for a lot of my rifles. I've got a lot of custom rifles, and what one rifle likes, another rifle hates. And there's a fine line with that. And I think shotguns are the same, and there's a lot of people that will agree with that.
And that goes back to something that we are constantly asked by our customers is, do you have a chart on the choke tube performance? And our answer is no, we don't, because there are so many variables in it. I could put a chart on the wall, but it would be meaningless, because depending on what gun you have, what choke tube you have, what ammo you have, what the weather condition is, what the target presentation is, it would all change.
It's like science 101. You don't have a control group.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like shooting, and you go to Colorado and shoot. I've shot out there a bunch over the years. You go out there because of the altitude change. My 22,000s and my gun, just using that as an example, out in Colorado at 5,000-6,000 foot elevation change is going to shoot like a 32,000s. It's going to shoot tighter.
Right.
So there's all kinds of things that factor into that, whether it's ammunition, the powder, the shot, altitude, all that stuff definitely plays a part in that, just like it does with rifles.
Yeah, that's why we always tell people, yes, you need to go to the pattern board. You need to understand the point of impact, but then you need to go to the practice course, and you need to see how it's working on the targets, because Yeah, they're always changing. When you go on a $10,000 hunt, right? First thing you do is you take your rifle out of the case and you sight it in, right? And that's every time you go hunting, you do that. So we need to go to the pattern boards and we need to go to the practice stands and we need to see how is our equipment functioning in today's conditions. The ammo I have, the barrel selection, all that stuff. So it changes.
Well, that's good information. I think that the reason why I was asking those questions is there are a lot of people out there think that there's like a one-size-fits-all answer for certain guns. Like, well, just tell me what the best gun is to buy and the best chokes to buy. It's not that easy, right?
It is not that easy. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, but it's a one-size-fits 90%.
Yeah, that's a good explanation.
Brandon, I know you don't change that often. So what is your gun that's stuck, or the choke that's stuck in your gun 90% of the course? Is it 22?
22,000s.
22. And Scott, so in this new Alien series, what are you doing? Any packages like you did with the Elite? Like, is it a complete set, like 7, 17, 22, or what's going to be available for the Alien?
So yeah, we'll do the set packagings as well. When we had first talked with Brandon, I think we wanted to go with 4 chokes because Brandon is a pairs guy, and we were looking at going in pairs. But end of the day, just like the Elites, it's probably going to be, we'll talk with the customer. We'll try and figure out, okay, what choke tubes are going to work best for you. Brandon Powell can shoot a 22,000 choke tube. Scott Dixon cannot shoot a 22,000.
No.
So for me, it's going to be 12 17s or 7 12s. So we'll try and custom build the best we can, and then of course the online packages 7 12 17 22.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But they do go all the way to a 32.
Yeah, so right now they're going, the constrictions are 7, 12, 17, 22, 27, and 32. Currently, we will build the 2 and the +2 that we have from our Elite line in the Powell line, but those are made to order. They are not going to be a stock constriction just yet because we might have some other stuff up our sleeves as far as that more open choke that we're working on.
Yeah, because Brandon tells me that he shoots threads, and I tell him, stop it. You can't do that. So he's tasked me with, fine, build me a choke tube that simulates shooting threads. So
that's cool.
We'll be on the lookout for that soon.
So when Brandon comes out with the blunderbuss looking on the end of his barrel, we know he's got something custom.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I think that's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to that, because when you pull the choke out of the gun, there's a lot of things you can mess up and damage. Not to mention you've got to clean your threads every time you do it. We won't talk about all the barrels I've blown up over the years.
Yeah, so major advice, don't do that.
But yeah, so I think it's going to be pretty cool to have a dedicated, rabbit choke. Yeah. Whether we call it, whether it's just specifically for rabbits or close targets, that's I can't wait to get my hands on that.
That'd be cool.
Let me ask you guys both this. What has been your feedback? I know it's new, but what's been your feedback from other shooters? I mean, either Brandon or Scott.
The biggest thing I hear is they hit harder. Everybody says they hit harder.
Brandon, anything to add?
Same thing. I mean, all the feedback's definitely been positive. I mean, the feedback that I see just from watching people shoot them. We were talking about constrictions a minute ago, how I shoot tight. There's a little kid out of Pennsylvania that I coach, AJ Diamond, and he's always been like a more of a 10,000ths guy. He likes to shoot improved cylinder, and we've got him shooting I believe it is the 12s is his favorite one right now. And I was practicing with him a couple weeks ago, and we were actually out shooting 50, 60-yard targets, and I couldn't believe the feedback that a 12,000 gives on a 50-yard bird.
Cool.
Kind of crazy.
That is very
I love
crazy.
the story after we sent Brandon. I think it was his first R&D set of the alien choke, and Scott came into my office after this phone call with just like this blank look on his face.
I mean,
I just got off the phone with Brandon, and the first thing he said to me is, what did you do? What did you do to these choke tubes? And Scott's just like, oh no, I've messed up big time. And Brandon's feedback was they smack that target. And so, to hear that coming from Brandon, who already hits everything so hard, it was proof in the pudding right there that there is a difference.
Well, Brandon, just real quick, we'll rattle this off for those that don't know, in case somebody's listening and they're like, okay, well, he said he shoots a Krieghoff, but like, what's his ammo, blah, 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 because I'm sure that curiosity has now been, that chord's now been struck. You do shoot a Krieghoff, 32-inch barrels, is that correct?
Correct. Parkours, not parkour barrels. The original parkour. Remington 1235, Nitro 27, ounce and A 7.5.
Okay.
If I shoot VTask, same thing, all 7.5s, just 1 ounce, 1290s.
Okay. And one last question for you, Scott. I know you guys have been working long hours and stuff in order to do so. Is it pretty much available for all the gun manufacturers right now?
I think we have 9. What do we have, Jillian?
So we are at about 10 different choke tube systems. So we have Blaser, Invector Plus, Invector DS, Optima HP, Krieghoff K80, and Parkour and Zoli. We just added, so we're a little bit limited, but we did just add offerings for Rosini XL, Kohler 740, and I think the next step's going to be Mobile and Fab HPs. So, I mean, we're expanding, we're growing that line very quickly. But we, if you have a choke system and that I did not mention, just give us a call, and, it might take a little bit of a wait to get them built, but we can get that, ran through our custom line for right now.
Okay. How long before we talk Brandon into barrel porting, Scott?
He's got ported barrels.
Do you have?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you're.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Look at that smile.
I never said barrel or porting was bad. You definitely got to have your barrel ported.
Okay. All right.
Clarifying there.
That got to be worth it for him.
Brandon, is that something new we just broke, or have you always had?
No, I've always been a fan of porting. A lot of people talk about porting. There's no substantial amount of difference in recoil. It's mainly for muzzle jump. I would agree with that. Probably, if I were new to the game, but as many shells as I've shot down the barrel of a shotgun over my 23, 24 years of doing this, I have to disagree with the fact that it definitely helps with you can feel a difference. Somebody that's new probably isn't going to notice that, but there's a tremendous reduction in the amount of not only recoil, but the muzzle jump that you have when you port your barrels, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Sean and I have been down this road with so many people, and Scott can attest to this. I mean, how many people have came in the trailer because of what we have said and wanted their barrels ported? So.
There's so much that I'll even take it as far as Scott just finished porting a set of 20 and 28 gauge barrels for me. So as soon as Krieghoff comes out with a 410 barrel, it'll be ported also.
Cool. And I'm always telling people, when you get to the upper levels, right, you're chasing that one more target. You need one more to get to the shoot off. You need one more to get to the pedestal. You need one more to get to the top of the pedestal. So if you're not doing those things, if you're not doing the porting, if you're not doing the choke testing, if you're not going out and seeing how it performs both on the pattern board and on the breaks of the targets, you're not going to get that one more target that you need. You're still going to stay just to the outside. So if you want that one more target, I believe we can help you get there.
That's well said. Definitely
well, guys, this has been awesome. Brandon, welcome to the Rhino team.
Thank you.
Scott, as always, cannot thank you and your entire family enough. Really appreciate everything you do for this program and being part of this program and letting us, help represent you. It's always awesome to talk to you. Anything else you guys want to say before we let you all go?
Again, as I always say, I am humbled and blessed with the family that Rhino has developed for me. And, I can't say thank you enough to everybody that supports the product. And we were very honored that Brandon would come to us and want to be part of this family. And I'm hoping we haven't let him down on the family value that Rhino portrays. And it's anything we can do for any of the shooters. We're only a phone call away.
Yeah, it's been great, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully many more years of this to come and continue to build the relationship. And it's been a pleasure so far, and I hope it always will be. I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, and that's why, Jason, I keep saying time and time again, Rhino is the place to go. Those guys are great. Scott and his whole family work very hard to make a great product and give it to all the shooters.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we're very blessed that we get to tell everybody about that.
Yeah.
Thank you all again. We appreciate it, and can't wait to see you all on the battlefield.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
The Dead Pair.
Well, Sean Alley, you know me. I'm not a big choke changer. Now, I will have something stupid close or stupid far, but for the most part, my 17s, my Elite Series, I roll with them everywhere on everything. And listen, I'm no pro shooter. I don't want anybody to follow my advice, but I mean, I've reached out and touched some stuff at stupid yardage with those 17s and just crushes them. So I'm kind of anxious. I want to try these new alien chokes and see what they're all about. Spend some time with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something definitely different. I mean, Rhino, we've always known, has always liked to port their chokes. This is a kind of a departure from that thought. So it'll be interesting to hear the feedback. I know that it's been out for a month or two now, and I think there's been some buzz and some talk about what's going on out there for the guys and gals that are using them. But let's wait and see. I guess let's wait and see, give them some time to test them out, and then hopefully the verdict will be in soon.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're anxious to try them too. You always like playing with new toys.
I do like playing with new toys, but you know what? I'm also an advocate of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I will definitely give any choke that Rhino throws my way to give a chance to try it out. So
yeah.
Always good. Always good.
I'm picking up my set at Florida State, which is, by the time you guys are hearing this, will be, it'll be right in the middle of it. So I'm not going to start experimenting with them during a competition, but I'm anxious to pick them up and put several rounds through them and practice and training and just see, I might switch back and forth, see if I can see a huge difference in the breaks, which it's sounding like I'm going to. We'll let them prove themselves, right?
Absolutely.
So, hey, everyone, just a quick reminder, Kohler is going to have the Dead Pair Kohler gun that we are drawing starting at the U.S. Open, and it'll be at all the shoots that Kohler is going to be at. So get over, you can hold the gun, look at it yourself, see what you have a chance of winning. They're going to have physical tickets available, and they're going to also have a counter display with a QR code so you can buy online with your credit card if you don't have the cash on you or whatever. But get over and check that gun out. And, even if you don't want to wait and see if you're the winner for the drawing, man, they've got a ton of cool guns they're going to have with them. Check them out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And for all of you listeners out there that want to help support the show and also maybe get some good goodies from our sponsors, remember RE Ranger and Taconic Distilleries offering a 10% discount off of your order. And that code is DEADPAIR10, DEADPAIR number 10. So DEADPAIR10, all one word, and it'll get you 10% off at either Taconic or RE Ranger. So get at it.
Hey, one more thing I'd like to ask from those of you that listen on Apple Podcasts, man, if you got something nice to say, we'd love to hear about it in a review. Leave us a rating, leave us a review. If you're somebody that listens on YouTube, because we do have this podcast that uploads to our YouTube channel, man, please like and subscribe. It helps us a bunch. It doesn't really make the mortgage payment. Don't misunderstand me on that. But it does help us. It shows our sponsors that, people are listening and paying attention. So greatly appreciate that if you would do it for us. Sean Alley, we're talking new chokes. We're talking tournaments. Man, how do we share the love?
Oh, well, it's real easy. Number one, just get somebody out there and introduce them to the game. I mean, again, I say it week after week. Take somebody out there, put a gun in their hand, let them break a few birds. You'll bring somebody into the sport, probably more than likely, that's going to get hooked on it just like you did. And you're going to make somebody's day by watching them break their first clay. So get them out there, support the sport, help grow the sport, point them our way if they need something to listen to once they get started, and watch it happen.
There you go. I love it, Sean. Hey, look, you like it, so I love it. Okay, that's all there is to it.
There you go. There you go.
But we got some exciting stuff coming up. That series that we've been talking about, it's coming out hot. We also have a very, very special guest coming up for a Scoops episode. And for those of you that can't catch that live over on our YouTube channel, we're going to release the audio as a podcast later in the week. But we have a doctor, a sports psychiatrist that's going to join us, and we're going to be covering some very interesting topics. And then we're going to get him back on later for yet another topic. So lots of good stuff coming. Please like and subscribe everywhere you hear us. We really appreciate it. And Sean Alley, my old buddy, until next week.
Until next week, can't wait to see you all back here on the Dead Pair Podcast.
We'll see you next time on the Dead Pair Podcast.
The Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Kohler Arms, the mark of performance, and is fueled by Fiocchi USA. The Dead Pair theme song was written, arranged, and produced by Toby Tomplay. Special thanks to the following sponsors: Atlas Traps, Ranger Performance Eyewear, Rhino Chokes, Long Range LLC, Taconic Distillery, Score Chaser, and Clay Range Design Works.